Good morning. How are you today? It is another Monday. This is the 15th of April. Unbelievable. 15th of April. And we're here again. This is yours truly, Rev Walter Mwambazi. And I am here to share this morning, as we always do. We're done with the other series that we're running with. I was running with Unleashing Your Destiny. That's done. I am now in a new series. Very exciting name. I've done this before, but you will learn even more. The quantum realm of the impossible. Very exciting subject. I look forward to running with this and just sharing with a lot of you as part of what I do. Before I get to that, let me take the opportunity to say, if you're watching this for the first time and you're watching off YouTube, please remember to subscribe. So in case you haven't done so yet, please subscribe and of course like the video. But even more importantly, when you subscribe, make sure you hit the notifications button so that you do not miss any other notices in future when we do share and come live like we do. And by the way, for those of you who navigate my YouTube channel, you'll realize that there's quite a bit that we post there, which is posted through the live button. So if you're looking for certain type of topics, you're going to have to go search the live section just to see if there's anything you missed. Although I do make it a point to add these lives to the various playlists that are on that page. But having said that, I want to take this opportunity also to ask you all, if you can, just to tag somebody, say hello, say hi. Just let us know that you're watching and where you're watching from if you can. But thank you for joining us every Monday. We come here as a team. I was very, very humbled last time. Over the weekend, we were with Dr. Nelly at her Real Woman Summit, and we were able to be part of what was going on. She did invite both myself and Sylvia, Dr. Sunshine, and we both did presentations, which I believe were very, very, very good. The following day, I was not able to be there because my brother, whom I love so much, like everybody else, whom I love so much, was celebrating his 40th birthday, and that was a landmark for two reasons. Number one, my brother is celebrating his 40th birthday, which is a big deal. But even more than that, my brother, in a couple of weeks, will be 2 years sober, 2 years clean since his last drink. And you know, for people that suffer alcoholism, these are big deals. He's now doing 2 years and running, and I'm so, not just myself, but all of us that were able to make it there that day, we're so proud of my brother and this milestone achievement. For my brother, we all admit he had gone to a dark place. And you know, when you've ever, if you've ever had a relative that is an alcoholic, whether functional or especially non-functional, you know and understand what I'm talking about. So anybody that's either an alcoholic or a substance abuse person, you know, addict, these are really, really dark places people can get to. And as relatives, it's extremely distressing. So to see my brother come out of that is just beyond words. And so one of the things I insisted was that I'm going to make sure that I am there just to appreciate God for answering our prayer. It is true, God does answer prayer. And I'm not saying that for those whom it didn't happen, God didn't answer. But what I know is that when you pray sincerely with all your heart and soul and commit these things to Him, we do have many people who sometimes by His grace get what we call a moment of clarity, awaken, go through an epiphany, and that epiphany helps them come out of that dark place. And fortunately, my brother, when he did decide to come out, there was a support group. And that's the beauty of family many times. That's the beauty of those that are close to you. If you're fortunate enough, you will find those that will lift you out of that pit and just help you on the journey to recovery. So he's doing very, very well. For the first time in his entire life, he got himself a driving license. Thank God he never drove before, because that was very scary, but he did. So anyway, that's the reason why I did not make it to the Saturday meeting, because of that. Either way, we had a great time. So remember, every day of the week we come here. Mondays is myself, Tuesdays is Dr. Sunshine, Sylvia Monsa, she does her thing. And then on Wednesdays, we have the open market that's just open, so anybody can come on that and promote or advertise whatever they're doing. Then on Thursday we have Dr. Nelly with Prosperity for Your Soul, and then Fridays we have Dr. Jackie with Healthy Tips. At this particular point in time and juncture, we have Dr. Mobanga standing in for her, doing his natural health series. So those are the 5 items we do. So tomorrow, Dr. Auntie Sylvia will be doing her thing. Sunshine will be here with Mindset Change program. So today, I launch a very, very exciting subject. I'm actually very excited. I look forward to this because it's been a while since I tackled this particular subject. So on my last trip abroad, we had the privilege of dining at a resort with beautiful glass dome overlooking a breathtaking mountainous valley view through which the entire 3/4 of the sky was visible. Now, as we partook of our meal, a bird flew into the dome through one of its 2 arches located on either side of the building. And this bird, when it noticed this, it tried to fly out through the dome because it was clear and transparent. But it kept hitting itself into that glass and falling to the ground, and only to repeat the process again and again with even more fervency. And even when people tried to help this bird, it got more frantic and tried flying out through the glass dome and kept failing. Okay? Then finally, this bird got so exhausted, it stopped trying to fly out anymore. And it was at that point that the people came to its rescue. They took it from one of the arches and released it, after which it flew away in what must have been apparent relief. So that was a very interesting situation. And as an observer, a number of things came to mind. And this, for me, is such a pertinent lesson. And so let me begin to give you those lessons. So the first key lesson: this bird kept trying to fly out using what it knew in its mind. What did it know in its mind? A clear sky means an open way, to which we who observed and saw more knew that not to be true. But the thing is, it was a fact to the bird, not to the truth, as it failed to fly out of that dome with this limited information. Okay, so the first key lesson here is that not all observable facts, and I think this is so critical, listen to this, not all observable facts and information dictate the entire truth, because paradigms always limit one's view and appreciation of reality. Now so this is where, for example, Aunt Sylvia and her lessons on mindset change, this is where you've got to understand that mindset can be such a serious hampering limitation. That's the first most important thing. Mindset can be such a serious hampering limitation. There's so many people that should have been able to go so far in their lives, must have been able to do so much for themselves, but because they are in possession of limited information, which is then made worse by their previous experiential life, these things become a serious barrier. Okay? So even where they could have progressed, they're not able to. Okay? So they find that they are barred. So many times, and I think that's what I need to begin stressing here, observable facts don't always mean the full reality. Think about that. Observable facts don't always mean the full reality. If that bird knew what we knew, it wouldn't have expended all its energy trying to fly out through a clear sky. So to its limited understanding, that was a clear sky. I can see the sky, I can fly out. Unfortunately, it did that until it was totally exhausted. How many times have you and I, at various junctures in our lives, found ourselves like that bird? There's a saying, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing the same way and expecting a different result. To those of us who observe that bird, You could define it as insanity because for sure it kept trying and not going anywhere. So why didn't you just stop, take a bit more time, and observe in a bigger way? I mean, remember, it came into this situation. So if it got into that dome, it certainly could go out. But you know what happened to the bird? Something that's very, very common with a lot of people. It got into a state of fear and panic. And that brings me to my second lesson. The bird allowed emotions, which is fear, to blind it to the truth that there has always been a way out, because that is how it came into the dome in the first place. Okay? If the bird had just taken time out and observed fully its surroundings, it would have become acquainted with reality and not expended so much energy in the first place. Now, those of us who are versed in neuroscience and at physiological levels, we understand something very profound that many people do not understand. Here's what we understand. Emotion, when the emotional brain kicks in, the thinking brain goes out. The emotional brain and the thinking brain cannot operate at the same time. That's what we are always taught. We're always taught that the thinking brain and the emotional brain are mutually exclusive. Both cannot work together. And that's why for many people who allow the exasperation of the situation to dictate their emotions, inevitably stop thinking and start reacting emotionally. And the challenge with emotions is because they are tuned to fear, which is a survival mechanism. You know, fear kicks in when it's about danger. When you sense danger as an individual, fear kicks in, and when fear kicks in, then your emotions kick in, and when your emotions kick in, all you get into is a mode we call the fright, flight, fight mode. Either you fight, or you run away, or you freeze. These are the usual three reactions that come as a result of the emotion of fear kicking in. Adrenaline is produced, and it's the one that brings about all those things. There's another hormone called cortisol, but we're not going to talk about that right now. So for now, let's stick with adrenaline. So adrenaline kicks in and you realize it's a dangerous situation. And once you get into danger mode, your brain is all about survival. Do you see why stressing and trying to change a situation without thinking it through actually is extremely detrimental to progress? So a lot of people end up in that space. But of course, to be able not to make emotional decisions is a very powerful exercise that requires a high level of mental aptitude, which most people do not have. And so most do not understand how best to kick those in. As you follow this series, The Quantum Realm of the Impossible, I am going to teach you over time exactly how you can control that. But for many people, they can't control it. And that's why they get into this serious panic mode. So here comes the third lesson. There was always a way out. I mean, that for me is just profound. That's the third lesson. There was always a way out, but the bird got overwhelmed with fear. And as far as the bird was concerned, there simply wasn't any way out. In its mind, an exit was in the impossible. You know, that in its own, I mean, that's something I ought to even let you stew in. Think about that. Let's say that again. There was always a way out. There was always a way out. And you know, I want you to take that to a whole other level, and I want you to think about your current situation. And I want to dare say, there is a way out. That's right. There is a way out. The sad part, though, is that once you allow this state of emotional turmoil as a result of the fear that you're suffering, you always end up fearful. So what's the key lesson? Every challenge always comes with a solution within it. Every challenge or problem always comes with solutions within it. All you need to do is pull back and not allow the fear that you're undergoing to affect you. Unfortunately, like I say, unless one is trained with this. The unfortunate part is that for most people, you definitely end up kicking in. Fear comes in. This is one of the things that normally military training, like my good friend here, Prince Anthony Lupupa, is actually a Kennel, retired. He's from the military, so he's reminded me. In the military, one of the reasons why you go through training is to get the training to become conditional. You become conditioned to react in a particular way. And so even when fear kicks in, your conditioned training kicks in too. And so because that kicks in, so therefore you react correctly. You're able to stay calm, you're able to control your personal reactions and things of that nature. So for example, people who have got high intrapersonal skills, like emergency service people, they have learned how to deal with stressful, fear-inducing situations, and instead of reacting with fear, running away, they run to it. So, for example, people who deal in emergencies like the police and people like fire services, they run into a burning building. I mean, that's amazing, isn't it? People run out of burning buildings, but they run into burning buildings. So, meaning they have that training, they have learned to overcome their sense of fear. So back to this one, every challenge comes with a solution within it. That bird, had it had the ability to be calm about the situation and realize that they have more than what they see, then they would be in a better position. That's why sometimes it's not easy because we react naturally. But if you had a way in which to fight this, you would make it. And I like what Harriet has posted. There's always a way out. There is no temptation that is not common to man, but with every temptation, there's a way out. That's exactly what Scripture teaches, and it is such a powerful thing. If only we could be able to understand that and to be able to utilize our capacity. You see, so in every situation, if you just take time out and deeply assess it, you will see the solutions right there. You will see a way. There's always a way. But unfortunately, like the bird, the emotions get the better of us. And remember, the more we panic, the more we fear, the more we panic. And the more we panic, the more we fear. And this feeds into our state of fear to a point where we're totally in survival mode. We stop actually thinking at all. And as we go on with this series, I'm going to show you just how dangerous that is. Just how dangerous the idea of being stressed and fearful is. Okay, now we go on. So this illustration I just gave you serves to introduce this series that I'm going to be dealing with, right? The concept of quantum leaping and enhanced performance. So what exactly is a quantum leap? Okay, so one of the most profound concepts I've ever come across in recent years is the concept of taking, or the quantum leap and quantum jumping. So for those not familiar, an advance or sudden change is a quantum leap. The phrase comes from a scientific term. In physics, a quantum leap is the abrupt change of a particle from one state to another. And what makes this concept so amazing is that at first it was believed many years back, when they just learned about these things, I think in the days of Niels Bohr and Einstein back in the turn of last century, it was believed that this process was random. But then with advanced technology, it has been 100% proven that not only is it not random, but it can be controlled. Can you imagine that? So to better appreciate this, I'm going to share two amazing stories. I don't know if I have time to share all two, maybe one, but we'll see what happens. I'm going to demonstrate with two amazing stories, okay? And these stories demonstrate that impossible is a state of mind for man. I'm going to say that again. Impossibility is a state of mind for man. And I know in motivation circles, they have this saying, and I love it. It says the word impossible is made of three words. I am possible. So truth be told is once your mind is tuned correctly, everything changes. And so I'm going to begin with the story of this man called Cliff Young. Okay, this is called the Cliff Young story. Now there was a man called Albert Ernest Clifford Young, who was born in 8th of February 1922 and died on the 2nd of November 2003. He was an Australian potato farmer and athlete from Beach Forest, Victoria. Now, he was best known for his unexpected win of the inaugural Sydney to Melbourne ultramarathon in 1983. So what is so special about him? I mean, everybody's always running, from one place to another in marathons. But what made this man so interesting? The answer, because the man was 61 years of age when he won this marathon. You heard me right. He was 61 years of age. 61. Now, in 1983, this 61-year-old potato farmer won the inaugural Westfield Sydney to Melbourne ultramarathon, a distance of 875 kilometers. Guys, that's like running from Livingston to Isoka. Think about that. No, in fact, it's like running from here to Kasama. If you know where that is, that's what I'm talking about, okay? Running from here all the way to Kasama. Can you imagine that? At the age of 61. The race was run between what were then Australia's two largest Westfield shopping centres, Westfield Parramatta in Sydney and Westfield Doncaster in Melbourne. Young, the man himself, Cliff Young, arrived to compete in overalls and work boots. I mean, think about that. With his dentures, later saying that they rattled when he ran. He ran at a slow and lopping pace and trailed the pack by a large margin at the end of the first day. This style of run became known as the Cliff Young Shuffle. I mean, the guy was odd in every way. And what made this so interesting is the fact that he shows up in overalls and work boots and he's going to run and he's 61. And in such places, there were people that were half his age, quarter his age. I mean, this is a man that was running with 21-year-olds, you know what I mean? And so everybody was laughing like, this guy, is he serious or is he local? But he went there and he showed up. Now listen to this story. While the other competitors stopped to sleep for 6 hours, because you see, the point about this tale is that Cliff Young won. And everybody was stunned. Like, how is it possible? What did you do? Because at the end of the 3 days or 4 days, whatever period it was, he shows up first and he beat the follow-up guy by 10 hours. Remember, when the end of the first day had come, he was so far behind, he was not running conventionally. He had, gumboots. We call them gumboots in Zambia. In the UK, they call them wellies. You know what I mean, Vimajombo. He was running with Vijabijombo, Vijavoingena Mans, Makombo. You know the ones. So everybody was stunned because people had shoes, sports shoes. They had the right outfits, the Chuma shorts and a t-shirt with the number on it. No, he was in an overall. And that's why the media showed up, because they were amused by this guy. Well, listen to this. So when they asked him, what happened? How did you do it? See, while the other competitors stopped to sleep for 6 hours, Young kept running. So that was the first way in which he challenged convention. He ran continuously for 5 days, taking the lead during the first night and eventually winning by 10 hours. And before running the race, he had told the press that he had previously run for 2 to 3 days straight, rounding up sheep in gumboots. He said afterward that during the race, he imagined he was running after sheep, trying to outrun a storm. The Westfield run took him 5 days, 15 hours and 4 minutes, almost 2 days faster than the previous record for any run between Sydney and Melbourne at an average speed of 6.5 kilometers per hour. Can you imagine that? Before this happened, everyone said it was impossible for a man of his age with no experience and with the wrong outfit to even attempt, let alone win such a race with people 1/3 his age. They said it was impossible. Okay? I mean, look at the barriers he had to deal with. He was 61 years of age at the time. He was a farmer. Farmers never ran in marathons, or so they thought. He wore gumboots and work overalls to run. He never participated in such a race before. He had never run a marathon in his life. He was so unconventional, he didn't even fit the profile of a marathon runner in the least. I mean, he even ran wrong with the shuffle. Yet he beat the runner-up, who was more than half his age and fit the profile by more than 10 hours. So what is that, my friends? A quantum leap in performance. Do you know after Cliff Young, everything changed? Do you realize this is the same story with the 4-minute mile barrier? And the third story is the Nayad story. I'll get to both. Now, in the 4-minute mile barrier, so I want to pause there first before I go into the film. Cliff Young proved everybody wrong by demonstrating. And that's why sometimes some of these barriers, some of these so-called impossibilities are only impossibilities because you have accepted them as an impossibility. But the moment you choose to no longer accept it as an impossibility, then it changes. And that's why I love the scripture that says, and I quote, "I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me." There is nothing that is impossible. Nothing. I don't care what it is. If we decide as human beings, we can make it happen. No wonder even God himself commented in the days of Nimrod at the Tower of Babel. He came and watched all these people with one accord, and he said, they are of one accord with one will and one language. Nothing, whatever they put their minds to, nothing shall be impossible for them. Now imagine if God can say that about people who are decided. These people didn't even know God. These people didn't even worship God. But the fact that they had that one mind, one determination, nothing could be impossible. That's why I love Jesus' statement. You know, Jesus is asked, "Lord, if it be possible, will you heal me?" And then Jesus, you know, the Bible translates it in a weird way. But if I could translate Mark 9:23, if I could translate it using modern English, the terminology would be impossible. With those who believe, nothing is impossible. So Jesus asked, impossible? No. With those who believe, nothing is impossible. And I wish we could all kind of catch that spirit. That's why the greatest war that's been waged on Africans has been a mental war. There is no greater war. And I don't want to get into that because I'll end up going into my other mode. But I can tell you this. This will be the only time I'll kind of drift into something a bit touchy on this platform. But I'll tell you this. Religion has been and continues to be the #1 factor barring Africans from maximizing who they are. Religion. Chief of which is Christianity and Islam. But I'm not going to go further. Let me stop right there. What I want you to know is that when it comes to achieving what God placed inside man, according to the fivefold mandate dictated in Genesis chapter 1, verse 28, 27 thereabout, it says that God made a command, a mandate, and said, go and what? Be fruitful, multiply, replenish, subdue, and have dominion. This fivefold mandate has nothing to do with whether you're a believer or you're not a believer. It is inherently inside of every human being because they carry a spiritual mandate that was translated into the physical realm. And that's why impossibility is in your head. It's not in reality, because man is a God with a small g. He has this capacity within himself to manifest anything that he pictures in his head, so long as he decides to do it. Because you see, the Bible says something profound. It says, you know, and I love this particular scripture. It says, it is the glory of God to hide the matter, and it's the glory of kings to search it out. That's why everything of value has to be sought. Everything that's of value must be pursued. Think about whether it's gold in the ground. Think about whether it's destiny in our lives. Everything is out there. And so you must go for it. You must pursue it. You must go after it. And you must take this journey that looks like an impossibility. But I am here to tell you that impossibility is made of I am possible. All right? So there's nothing. In fact, I like that. Impossibility stands for I am possibility. So meaning there is nothing that stops you except you. You are your own barrier. You are both your best friend and your worst enemy. You. Yes, the one who looks in the mirror in the morning. Dr. Sylvia likes saying this all the time. It is you who stands in the barrier. So quickly, let's look at, oh man, it's 8 o'clock. All right, I got to begin winding up. So there was there was a guy called Roger Bannister back in 1954 who was also, told that it is impossible for the human body to run a mile in 4 minutes. It's just not designed. The heart will burst. And what? He broke that barrier. And when he broke that barrier, all of a sudden in the same year, 11 people broke the barrier. So do you see, once everybody realized, so it's possible, then all of a sudden everybody was able to do it. Today, over 1,800 people have broken the mile in 4 minutes. Not only that, it is the standard for the Olympics now. If you can't run a mile in 4 minutes, you don't even qualify to get into the Olympics. Can you imagine that? But there was a time it was felt it was impossible to do it. And the last one, and I want to close with this, is Nayad. Those of you who haven't watched the movie, watch the movie Nayad, N-Y-A-D, Nayad. It has Annette Bening and Jodie Foster, and was nominated for an Oscar this year. Very good movie. I mean, that movie is amazing because this is the story of this lady called Nayad. When she was 28, she was a very big, great swimmer. She attempted to cross from Cuba to Florida by swimming. This is like over 100 miles of swimming, like more than the English Channel in distance. She wanted to cross it swimming nonstop over 48 hours or whatever it is. And she failed when she was 28. And then she's 60 and decides to do it. Please watch the movie. It's absolutely amazing. It is literally the same story like Cliff Young. 60-year-old, when she was half that age, she failed to do it. And now she's more than double the age and decides, I'm gonna do it. Just watch the movie and see what kind of odds she had to deal with. It was insane. But you know what? She finally pulled it off. It's amazing to watch and say, oh my God. And she makes some powerful statements at the end of that particular movie that are profound. I don't want to spoil it for you. Just go watch the movie Nayad so that you learn what I'm telling you. That when you put your mind to anything, this idea of a quantum leap is very possible. I don't care. Let me end with this. And first, let me mention my lesson. The lesson is the greatest barrier to performance is always a mental barrier. I gotta paste this. The greatest barrier to performance is always a mental barrier. I want you to know that you are your own best and worst enemy, because it is you who determines whether you're able to progress or retrogress. That is always something that comes from you. No one else stops that. So let me ask you a question. Are you right now in your life dealing with an issue that you're not progressing in? Is there something that you've told yourself, this is impossible for me? What is it that you think is a massive unscalable wall in your life? I am here to tell you by way of this lesson that nothing is impossible. The only impossibility is the one you set, not what the circumstances set, not what the environment sets. These are facts which do not they are not tied to reality. It's Nayad with an N-Y, not Nayad, not the way you've written it, Judith. It's N-Y-A-D. Nayad. Let me write it. That's the one. So this barrier, that whatever it is you decide, it's you who determines whether you're going to progress or you're going to fail. You, no one else. And I don't care what that situation is. Once you just decide, I'm done, nothing will stop you. That's why nothing beats the determination of a focused soul, of a focused spirit. That's why even God made that statement, that these people have become of one accord and of one mind and of one language. Now, nothing they put their minds to shall be impossible. So what was their goal? To build a tower to reach the heavens. And that was going to be a reality. Now, there's a lot about that tower, but I'm not getting into it now. But just know that they had that determination. And God looked at them and he saw they are going to achieve it. And what did he do? He had to go confuse their language so they could no longer talk in one language. And so by failing to talk in one language, then now they were confused and they had to give up. I think for me that's profound. If God says that whatever man puts their mind to is not an impossibility, then we know nothing is impossible. So, having said all that, next week, okay. In fact, let me end with a Paul J. Meyer quote. You know, Paul J. Meyer, somebody we all love, including Aunt Sylvia. We love Paul J. Meyer. Paul J. Meyer made a quote which I love. He said, "Whatever you vividly imagine, ardently desire, sincerely believe, enthusiastically act upon, shall inevitably come to pass." And enthusiastically kind of act upon shall inevitably come to pass. This is a profound quote by Paul J. Meyer. Okay, and so I want to end with that particular quote. I want to remind you very strongly, I'm actually putting it right there in the comments. Whatever you vividly imagine, ardently desire, sincerely believe, and enthusiastically act upon must inevitably come to pass. Must inevitably come to pass. Woo! Bane, if you are listening to this and you're still wiring and languishing in the land of the quicksand, cold doubt and self-negativity, then it's on you. Because God put everything inside of you, my friend, to overcome. Everything in you to overcome. There is nothing that can stand in your way. I don't know how many times I can say this. There is nothing. And by the way, you don't need people because, well, you do need them. But my point being, they are not the only reason. You know, when you have this type of resolution, the resources show up, the people show up, the money shows up, the tools show up, the systems show up, everything shows up. It all starts to show up, but you must start to move. If you don't move, my friend, it's not going to happen. Alrighty? So on that note, I hope you had a very, 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 very positive morning. And in my next transmission next week, I am going to be looking at the concept of quantum leaping and its countless examples in industry and human endeavor. You're going to see for yourself that there are so many times we as human beings have tapped in and utilized the power of the quantum performance in order to achieve quantum results. That means leaps and bounds. Going in places where one can't even begin to understand how you moved from A to B, considering all the things that have stood as a barrier in your life. How did you overcome those barriers? By the quantum mind. That's why it's called the quantum realm of the impossible. Have a good morning. Mark this date. Next week, Monday, we're back with another very, very exhilarating topic. It's just going to blow your mind. In fact, I suggest you do the following. Mark this in your calendar every Monday, 7:30 to 8. Just mark it, because over the next maybe 25 to 30 episodes, I'm going to be dealing with this subject, and it's going to change your life in a massive way. Remember, I do this because I recently qualified for a scholarship in neuro leadership and neuropsychology, and I have learned insane data. I will share some of it with you, and you will understand. Let me also close by saying these words. This course and this stuff I'm teaching you, Fortune 500 companies are paying between $3,000 to $7,000 a day for the training. $3,000 to $7,000 a day. So just understand how powerful it is. I'm giving you just a diongo. I'm not even going deep, so that you understand. And that little diongo, if you're the type who's serious, you will make it. On that note, goodbye. We have spent so much time. I'm way over the time. Bye. Have a great day. See you tomorrow. Come back tomorrow when Doc is on. Bye.